Welcome back, and in this video we're going to be continuing with our X5 because in the last video we finally swapped out this entire chassis leg. We had to take out two and then put one back in. As you can see, this is the new one that we put back in, and then we had to take two out, which was the old one as you can see, and then also this one which came from the structural cut. And one more thing that we had to replace was this support frame right here because it was kind of bent, but we got everything back to normal and looks very nice. Also, this piece up here looks the exact same to the other side. As you can see, looks very nice, way better than before. And in this video we're going to be preparing the car and also the entire engine so that we can finally continue with the next big step, which is going to be throwing the engine back in the car. And there's a lot of things which we need to do before we can even move on to the engine, and one of the first things which we're going to be tackling is the seam sealer, because in the last video when we put this chassis leg back in here, we only did the panel bond obviously, and the panel bond needs a little bit of time to dry, so we couldn't put the seam sealer on yet. So this is what we're going to be doing first. We're going to put all the seam sealer over it, and then after that we also have to paint everything because this is black as you can see, and we want it to match the rest of the car, so we're going to paint it white, but that's after we do the seam sealer. And there's also a couple of smaller things. For example, the wiring which lays down here goes all the way up here on the inside, and we can't really reach it and pull it all the way from the bottom up when the engine is inside. And a couple of things which we need to do to this engine which are locally on the outside, so nothing internal. One of them being the engine mounts, because as you can see in this video when we pulled the engine out, one of the engine mounts broke off, completely flew out of the car. And also on this side, on the passenger side, the bracket for the engine mount which bolts onto the engine itself up here also broke off. This engine mount is completely fine and in good shape, and we already have the new bracket, so this is also what we're going to be doing. And here on the driver's side is where the engine mount broke off of. The bracket is fine, but the engine mount wasn't. Here we have a new one. And then one other thing that we also have on this engine, on the top right here, this coolant reservoir got a little hit in the crash which we taped off up here. As you can see, it has a little crack, so we also have a new one, and this is also something which we're going to be swapping out. And now we can go ahead and start off with the seam sealer. So what we did now is tape everything off because we obviously don't want it everywhere, and we're just going to be trying it out on the support frame for right now. So this is also why we only have this taped out. We're going to try our best, so let's get started. Now we finally finished up this piece with the seam sealer, and I actually have to say that this looks really good and better than I expected. Also the texture and everything looks very good. Also this top piece right here looks very good, and also OEM, because as you can see back here, for example, this piece also has those kind of lines in there that this definitely looks good. It definitely works and does its job. And also what we used, as you saw, we used a normal paintbrush, and we didn't buy a complete new one because when you buy a new paintbrush like this, it's completely soft and you don't really want that. So we just used a used paintbrush that we had in our house, because when they're used and when you wash them out and stuff like that, the bristles are a little bit harder, so that kind of also helped to make it look like this. But yeah, definitely say that this looks very good. And also kind of to compare it to the other side where it is the OEM seam sealer, this also looks good. To be honest, I don't really like how this looks. Also up here, it should be completely closed, so BMW also doesn't go 100% on this. I have to say that ours definitely looks better than this. Not everything is perfect, but it does its job. And one thing that also makes it look a little bit off is that the seam sealer is white and the chassis leg is black, so it's white on black. So it looks a little bit more extreme, but this is definitely gonna look way better when everything's painted in one color. So now after trying it out our first time on the support frame, we're a little bit more confident, and we're gonna continue with this entire inside. So now we finally got the seam sealer done everywhere, and this already looks way better than before. Still looks a little bit off since it is the white on black, but that's going to change it a little bit when we paint it. Something that also helps, since when we go over it with a brush, there's still like little hairs or little strings hanging off. So what kind of helps is when you use a paper towel, tap on it to kind of hit the hairs down, and since this is already on there for 5 to 10 minutes, it's already a little bit harder, so it doesn't stick in it. It just knocks down the loose hairs that are on top and works really well. So now, after touching up the last pieces, we're finally done with the entire seam sealer. Back here we got everything where the rivets are, then down here around the corner for all of those screws, up here on the strut tower, and then what we started off with, the support frame, and along this entire top of the strut tower, the rest of the chassis leg down here. And this actually looks pretty good. Also, if you look at this side is a very thin layer, looks the same, and definitely does its job. So super happy that we finally got it done. Putting on the seam sealer is a little bit messy and also annoying because you have to put on this weird structure that it has on it. Well, you don't really have to, but this is what we want to do since we want to put it as OEM as possible. And it did turn out really well, but it's a lot harder than doing silicone or stuff like that, because since we are in the window and aluminum business, we use a lot of silicone as well, and silicone is way easier than this, because what we do with the silicone, we make it really smooth, and that is way easier than doing this and way less messier. Yeah, I'm super glad that we finally got it done. This was also a big step, and now we can move on. And I think right now is a good time to like and subscribe if you enjoy it, and let's continue. So now we just brought the entire engine from back there over here so that we can work on it and start prepping this. What I'm going to be starting off with is the engine mount bracket down here, because as I said at the beginning, it did crack. It's no good anymore, as you can see up here. It's just 4 screws that it's attached to the engine. And our plan for next video to get this engine in is that we attach the subframe to the engine, because that just makes life a little bit easier to pull an engine out and put it back in with the subframe. Because as you can see, last time we pulled it out without the subframe, and that's a little bit complicated because it's a little bit more of a tight space. So what I'm going to be doing now is, first off, put that bracket back so that the engine mounts can go on, and after that I'm going to be attaching the engine mounts onto the subframe right here. They just slide onto like that, and then these screws right here come in from the bottom. Same thing on the other side, and this is also the new engine mount that we had because the other one was cracked. And since we're going to be putting the subframe onto the engine, we are already going to be installing the anti-roll bar and also the steering rack, because those are also a little bit of a tight fit between these two holders right here of the subframe. So we're also going to be putting these, so they're also out the way. Just a couple of screws from the bottom, and that should be it for those. So yeah, I'm going to be starting off with the bracket of the engine mount. So this is going to be a easy fix because this is just literally bolted on there, and you can see this is the piece that cracked off. Here's the new one, which is also a used one, but in a way better condition than the old one. And something also interesting down here where the bracket screws onto is that BMW already puts a bunch of different threads for different brackets down here, because this engine is also used in the X5M competition. They probably use different brackets. So this is what BMW does. They just put different threads in here so that they don't need to make loads of different parts. Now I'm gonna be putting the new one back in. And now I got all of the screws in, but they're only hand tight because they have a specific torque, which we're gonna do now. And as I said, those screws have a specific torque spec of 25 Newton meters and then an additional 105 degrees. part which we need to fix is this pressure sensor right here, as you can see, which is after the intercooler. This one measures the pressure which the turbos obviously produce, how much pressure goes into the inlet manifold down here, and it's cracked right here. So we have the new one right here. We ordered it thinking that it was a OEM part, but apparently it's not. So we're gonna still install it, and if we have a code or anything, we probably already know what it is. So we're gonna put it in and then we'll see. And a good part about this is that the sensor itself cracked and not anything in the cables. And here again, you can see that this is part of the sensor and not of the harness or whatever, because it unclips right here. And the entire harness is fine, just the sensor which is broken right here. The next problem which we're going to be solving is this coolant reservoir. As you saw at the start, it has a little puncture hole right here, but as we were looking at that, we also found our next problem right here. On this water pump right here, we can see that there is some plastic broken off right here, and we looked at the other piece, and this attaches to the fan which sits in front of the entire engine. So this is also a piece which we're going to have to buy new, but this doesn't hinder us from doing anything and putting the engine in, because we can still reach it from the front. So we're just going to be swapping out the reservoir. And now that the old one is out, we can throw the new one back in. And that's already the next problem solved. No more hole, and now have a good coolant reservoir. And the next thing that we have that we already noticed when we took the engine out is down here on this lower pulley, is that this corner and this edge right here is kind of chipped off, and right here it's loose too. That is because when we took the engine out, it was kind of swinging forwards and almost hitting this, and we didn't want that, so we put a wood in between it. And whilst we were taking out, it was obviously moving quite a bit. The wood then chipped this away. Since this, I think, is plastic, it chipped this off, and we don't want to risk this piece cutting into the belt and then the belt ripping. We definitely don't want that. So we're also going to buy a new pulley, and then whilst we're already on it, we're going to buy a new belt and already do the service for the belt, because it can't get any easier than this to do a service on the belt. So yeah, that's also something that we're going to do in the future, and let's move on. And now, after fixing all those problems on the engine, we can now move on to the next step, which is going to be the subframe, because as I said at the start, we are going to put the engine back in the next video with the subframe underneath. And yeah, we're going to start off with the engine mounts on the left and the right side, and then after that we're going to move on to the steering rack and also the anti-roll bar right here. So we just realized that we didn't record me putting these in and actually tightening them, but now we have both of these engine mounts in here. They're just hand tightened. Yeah, now we can move on. And next up we have the steering rack right here, which sits in the middle of the subframe and then also only has 4 bolts from the bottom. So now we have the steering rack in place on the subframe, and before we move on to the anti-roll bar, which sits on the front right here, we are going to put the subframe under the engine already. All of this adds too much weight, and it's way easier to just slide the subframe under the engine than to roll the engine above the subframe. So that's what we're going to do now before we move on to the anti-roll bar. So we just got the subframe underneath the engine, as you can see, and we couldn't really record it because we needed 2 people because this thing is really heavy. But yeah, looks good now. And one thing which we are going to do is, since the engine mounts are already connected down here to the subframe, and the only thing that is missing is this 1 bolt which connects to this aluminum bracket, we don't really want to risk it of breaking it if we hang it underneath, because it normally doesn't hang underneath, it just sits on the subframe. So what we're going to do is tie or put a tie down on here and also hang it up to here, pull it a little bit up so it takes a little bit of weight off. But before we do that, we are gonna put the anti-roll bar underneath and connect it to it, and then we should be able to connect it and also lower it. and we can't really tighten it just yet because the anti-roll bar still can like turn forwards and backwards, and I'm gonna have to check that later when everything is in the car. So we can only screw it in and kind of put it into place, but can't really tighten it yet. And now that we have everything in place, we can start lowering the engine slowly onto the engine mounts and then also connect those. And then the engine can rest a little bit because obviously we still need to finish the entire chassis leg right here. We need to paint everything just to kind of throw it back onto it. The seam sealer looks really, really good. Already dried up a little bit. We are gonna paint it tomorrow, and yeah, we're gonna lower the engine now. And now after lowering down the entire engine onto the subframe, everything lines up and we can add the next bolt, which connects the engine mount to the engine mount bracket. This one also has a torque spec of 50 Newton meters. So now, as you just saw, I put those two last bolts in, which connect the entire subframe to the engine itself. Really proud of what we got done today. And yeah, we're gonna lower it down now, and then I'll see you guys tomorrow. It's the next day, and all the seam sealer which we put on yesterday is completely dry now and ready for the paint. So this is the last thing which we're gonna be doing is the entire paint. But before that, we also have to prep the entire chassis leg, sand it down and clean it off again. And we're also gonna get this crash bar out. So I just finished sanding it down, and the two main reasons why we're doing it is one, if there's any imperfections, bumps or whatever, we get all of those out, and the second reason is to kind of open it up so that the paint holds better. And we also can't just paint over everything now after sanding it down. We have to clean it first to get all of the little dust off. And after cleaning everything, we also have to remove a couple of things. For example, these grommets right here, which is a thread in there, and these are just plastic clips which go in there, but they're only one-time use, so you can't really get them out. So we ordered new ones, so we're just gonna pop these out. And now that everything is clean, we can move on to the next step, which was taping everything off. And as you can see now, we have everything completely taped off. Now we can finally start with the painting. And again, we have 4 steps, and the first step is the primer. And with the primer, we're only gonna hit all the spots which were bare aluminum, because right here we obviously had to scrape a lot off, and also everything had the fresh glue and the seam sealer, because back here on the OEM chassis leg, we can see that not everything is completely with primer and color. And also this front, since we also painted this front is white, so we're also gonna primer this front so it's the same. And we're also doing the entire support frame because also the OEM one is completely white and not just a little bit black or whatever. It's completely white, so that's why we also have to primer the entire thing. And one other part that we're also going to be painting is up here, because obviously this part was a little bit bent, so we had to hammer it a little bit. There was a little bit of damaged paint before, so we also sanded this part down and also going to paint this. And now we can continue with step 2, which is the paint itself. And now after doing the paint, which was step 2, we can now do step 3, which is the mid coat, which gives it that little pearl effect. We can now finally do the last step, which is the clear coat. And just like that, all of these 4 steps to the entire painting procedure are done. And this thing already looks way better than before. And yeah, we're gonna let this sit for a couple minutes so before we unwrap it, so that we don't accidentally touch any of the complete wet paint. So we're gonna let this sit for a couple minutes and then take all of the taping off. All right, and here we have it. The complete new chassis leg and the support frame everything repainted in the exact same white. This thing just looks incredible and way better than before. And I'm really proud of how far we've actually came with this. And also the entire painting, we tried matching it. As you can see here, some spots it looks like we didn't hit right, but as you can see here, this doesn't look much different to the OEM side. So we tried matching it up to the OEM, and I think we did a pretty good job. Also the seam sealer and everything looks very, very good. Super proud, and this is transformed everything. Yeah, super happy with how it turned out. And next up, we're going to be removing this fender, and not because the fender is damaged, but the 5 brackets that are attached to the entire fender on the top right here. So what we're going to be doing is take the fender off, and then also these holders or the bracket, because they are bent, as you can see also down here in the corner. It is rusting because these things are steel, so we can definitely see that it bent. And another good thing about having a structural cut is that it again comes with other pieces that you may need, and these brackets are on the structural cut, which is really good because we can reuse them, and obviously we're also going to be repainting them. So yeah, let's start taking this fender off. And we already removed a couple of the screws beforehand, and here you can also see how bent these brackets are, because if I hold the front of the fender right here to this bracket, which we know is bent, the hole sits in the middle, and then the next one right here is not in the middle at all, so this one might not even be bent, and then the third one right here doesn't sit in the middle at all, so this one also might be good. And then up here we still have the screw in here, but we'll see if they're all bent once we have this fender off. And now after taking those 2 screws out, one up here and the other one up here, as you just saw, it's already loose, and we can move it around to the position that we need it. It already looks a little bit better. And as of right now, we're not going to be taking these one out on the top because they actually look good. We're definitely going to be taking this one out because, as you can see, it is definitely bent. And then also this one on the bottom, this is also on the structural cut. So yeah, that's what we're going to do next. And we don't really have to take the entire fender off because we can just screw them off as of right now. So that's what we're going to do now. And now I can also remove this little plastic piece which is inside the bumper, and here's also up here, this little plastic piece is part of the bumper, and this is just to attach the bumper to the fender. This sadly broke off, so we can also take this off now. And here you can see this is part of the old bumper, and this is the bracket which just attaches everything. Yeah, now we got this out. And here you can see that the bracket sits nice and flush. The hole is in the middle, and this upper one also sits in the middle now, which is very good. So what we did, we took the measurements with these window shims from the other side and put them in between here. I held pressure on the fender to keep it in here with the measurement, and then my dad hit the brackets a little bit to slide them into place, and this looks really good now. And this already looks way better, and in the future when we put the hood on and start looking at the panel gaps, if any of this seems to be too far out or too far in, we're not going to loosen the screws and then push the fender more in or out. We're going to hit the bracket again like we just did and try touching it up with that. And when we also put the screw in, we're going to put it right at the spot where it is to sit nice and flush, because you can see the OEM spot where the screw used to sit, and that's exactly where we're going to put the screw now too. And now that those top holes align, we also checked the bottom one and also put the shims in again, and this one also aligns very good, so we're going to also put this one in, but before that also put the window shims in so that the measurements and everything sit right. So now that this top screw is in place and tightened, and this panel gap up here is the same like on the other side, and all these screws up here, the holes up here align, we're going to check out the panel gap between the door and the fender, and then we're already going to put these screws back for the top ones. Now, as you can see, this is perfect without even touching anything, without doing anything. This already looks really good. And after looking at the panel gap between the door and the fender a little bit more, we noticed that the fender is still out by a little too much. Down here, it's not that bad, but up here, it's too much. Obviously, up here, it starts curving up, so this right here is normal. But around right here, it's too far out. So what we're gonna do now is, since the fender itself has 2 more screws on the inside, where you can actually take the fender more in and out, we're gonna drop this washer fluid tank right here, which just has 1 or 2 screws and a couple of clips. We're gonna drop this and then loosen those 2 screws which are back here, and then fit it and make it look good with the panel gap. here you can see also how I can move it in and out. As you can see, I'm pushing it, and this is adjustable. So yeah, now we're gonna fit it. And now we have it sitting nice and flush. The panel gap, as it was before, was nice, but the height difference between the door and the fender wasn't that good. But now we just got it fitted, and the height between these are now really good. So now we can move on to the top screws. So now we have them all tightened down, and this is just to have them in the original position where they were before. Again, as I said, this is not finished by any means. This is just to, again, keep it, and we're gonna do the panel gap in the future when we have the hood on. And one more thing which we're gonna have to do with this fender is this piece right here where all the brackets attached to and everything is bent a little bit outwards. As you can see up here, this entire piece up here is 90 degrees all the way up, and it starts at around here where it starts to kind of get more pulled out. So what we're gonna have to do is twist it. This is gonna be very interesting to see how we're gonna do it, but this should be a little bit easier since this entire fender is aluminum. And here we have our structural cut with these two brackets which we need. So what we're gonna do, since these are black, we're also gonna paint these. But what we're gonna do, we're gonna still keep them on here because we can't really hang them up anywhere. So what we're gonna do is loosen them, put the window shims behind it so that when we paint them, when they're on here, they don't really start drying when they're still attached completely. And BMW also does this, that they just put these brackets on everything and then paint over it overall and don't do it separately. So that's also kind of what we're gonna do now. And we just realized after loosening it, as you can see, we have the little circles right here which aren't painted because, as I said, BMW paints everything once everything is on. So the screws cover it, and then we have these circles, and not every car is the same, so the brackets are going to be different too. So if you just screw it on again and then paint over it, it's going to be different to when we put it on over there, and then we're going to have the circles again, and then we're going to have to paint it again when it's on the car. So we don't want that, so we're going to take it off completely and then think for a solution. And right now what we have probably is to just put a screw and a random thread here and then hang it from there and then just paint it completely. And now that we have these brackets out, the next step is going to be painting them. So for that, we're going to have to prep them, which means sanding them down and then cleaning them. Now that we sanded it down and cleaned everything, we now just put one of the old screws back into the thread, tied a small rope to it, and now we can start by painting it. So now we're gonna let this one dry for a couple minutes and do the other one. And now we can actually do the paint because before it was only the primer. And now also number 2. And next up after the paint is going to be the mid coat or the pearl coat, which gives it that little pearl effect. And then after that is also the clear coat. So to paint all of these is 4 steps: primer, the paint, then the pearl coat, and then the clear coat. And now it gets its beautiful pearl coat. And now we can finish it off with the clear coat. So now we completely finished painting both of these brackets and they look really, really good. And it's also crazy to see how fast you can transform these, because just a couple minutes ago, these were still completely black and dirty, and now they look completely brand new. And these two brackets are now completely done. And I have to say that these actually turned out really, really good. Even just feeling it, they feel really good. And also holding it to the fender and everything itself, the paint matches up really good. So yeah, these are now done. So we're gonna test fit them, and the first thing which we're gonna do is put this one, which sits in the front right here, put that one first, and then we're gonna move on to the other one, which sits right here. But before we actually do that, we need to fix the fender right here, because it has a couple of dents right here, but everything is fixable. So after doing this first part, we're gonna remove this plastic piece right here. It just has 3 screws, I believe. And then we can start by fixing this. And as you can see, this holder right here, which is part of the fender, broke off during the crash. Just because of that, we're not gonna buy a complete new fender. And since we already have to go to Diego because this support frame needs one little weld down here, we are gonna ask Diego if it's possible for him to weld this other piece on, because we have the other piece which is missing. So we're gonna ask him if he can weld it on, because just because of that little piece, we're not gonna buy a complete new fender. And since most of the screws are visible, we don't really want to mess them up, because they are painted to match the rest of the car, which is white. So what we're gonna do is take a small piece of tape and put it on top of our socket. And to make it a little bit easier, just put a small hole in the middle. And use your finger, and then you can press the screw into there. And then now you should have a little bit of tape on the inside, which kind of prevents it from putting any scratches on the nut and the screw. And the same thing that we're doing on the other ones too. We're going to line it up to the old one, because there are the marks where you can see where the old screws sat. So that's also what we're going to be doing. So now after putting this bracket on, it looks like everything is in the right position, so that looks really good. So we're gonna move on to the next bracket right here. And the first thing which I'm gonna be doing is to remove this plastic piece, which has 1 small screw here and 2 on the top. And then we're gonna be fixing this piece. So now we're gonna heat it up with our torch, because obviously it's aluminum, we don't want to break it off because it's very thin. And then we're just gonna try to bend it around and try to get it straight. So now we just got this little piece done and completely straight, which worked out really good. And now we need to do this top piece, which is kind of dented into here, pushed back into here, and then also this piece out here into that way. So what we're gonna do first is try to get this corner popped out, and then after that we're gonna push it back into this direction. Don't really know how and if it's gonna work, but we're gonna try it out. Now we just got this little dent out where everything got pushed out. So we worked everything out, kind of pulled it out. Everything was pulled out too much, but now everything that's too far out, we're gonna put back again. Now this top piece looks really good, and if we look at it from the side, we can see that it's completely flat, the same as the bottom, so that turned out pretty good. And now the only thing that we have is that this entire thing is kind of popped out more in this way, so that's what we're gonna try to tackle next. So So now after a little bit of trying to make this entire bracket and this fender align with everything else, because we're constantly taking measurements to the left and right side, comparing everything with the laser that we set up. Before it wasn't really that good, but now everything starts to come together and looks a little bit better. And also one piece that is also a good sign is this plastic piece that we took out at the start. And if we look back, it had a lot of tension on it when we took it out because it was really hard to pop out, but now it's really in there with no problem, and it's loose and fits in there, so that's a really good sign. And yeah, we're kind of pulling a little bit, hammering on this piece, and yeah, it seems to fit very, very good now, which I'm happy about. Yeah, we're gonna take a little bit more measurements to get this exactly dialed in. It should be done. And as I said, I'm super happy with how this entire thing turned out. This was at first unimaginable that we even touch anything like this. Really, really glad that we finally got this done. We got a lot of the prep work done to finally get the engine in, which is going to be in next week's video. So yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed it. Make sure to like, subscribe, and turn on the post notification. Drive safe and stay tuned.